Welcome to the Rusted Garden Homestead. Today it's going to be 95 degrees. It's way too hot, way too early here in Maryland Zone 7, but this video is all about watering. I'm going to talk to you about how you can ensure that you're getting your plants 1 to 2 inches per plant, watering to depth, deep into the soil, but more importantly, talking about watering that top 4 to 6 inches of your soil more regularly. You don't want your plants just to survive, you want them to thrive, and for that to happen you have to water more often than you probably think. This is also a sponsored video. This is sponsored by HoseLink. I highly recommend picking up a retractable hose. A hose is a tool. You want the right tool for the garden. I need 80 feet of hose to water my garden and to get over those muscadines to another garden over there. I used to, drag a hose around. I even set up this. I put it in concrete. By the time I wrap 80 feet around here, it's a lot of work, it's ugly, it's not attractive, it's not functional. I just love the retractable hose for this reason. You can just give it a tug and then your hose is going to retract right into there. I'll be talking more about HoseLink, and at the end of the video I will show you how to set these up throughout your garden. But let's talk about watering. 95 degrees today, about 88 yesterday. You can already see that my soil is starting to crack. There's no mulch. We'll talk about mulch. But when the top 4 to 6 inches start heating up, the surface roots of your plants are affected. And if they're drying out, the plant is also going to be stressed. If they're getting super hot, the plant might think that it needs to shut down and stop producing. So watering the top 4 to 6 inches more regularly will help the plant survive and thrive and not just kind of tolerate hot days and get by. Let's start with watering tomato plants. You always hear, give your plants 1 to 2 inches of water. Well, that's really hard to figure out sometimes. How much is that exactly? Well, I'm going to show you how to figure out how much water your hose is putting out, and that's going to be the 1 or 2 inches that you're giving the plants. Talking about how often you water when your garden needs it. When the plants are smaller, they need less. When they're larger, they need more. So we're going to cover the principles. All right, let me set up the container to show you how you can figure out how much 2 inches is for your plants. The first thing you want to be able to do is know how long it takes for 2 inches of water to come out of your hose. So draw a line from the bottom 2 inches up, or about 5 centimeters. The base of this bucket is about a square foot around the plant. So anywhere from 1 to 3 times a week, you want to give your plants a nice deep watering. HoseLink comes in different sizes. This is a 50-foot reel. The one that you saw in the garden was 82 feet. And basically it replaces everything you see here. I get tired of just dragging this hose up here and throwing it there. By the time I buy a hose carriage and set it all up, your cost is getting to what it pretty much costs to buy a HoseLink retractable reel. Comes with everything to hook it up, beautiful nozzle, everything is there. So I have well water. The water pressure is about something like that. And I just put it into the container and I start counting. So that's about 3 seconds, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It takes 10 seconds for me to get about 2 inches of water out into a 1 foot square space. Every hose, every hookup is going to be a little bit different. So go ahead and do this, and then you know that you just go over to your cucumber plant or your pepper plant or whatever, and then you water for 10 seconds. That's going to give it 2 inches of a nice deep watering. Let's talk about shallow watering. Watering containers is very different. That's going to be the subject of another video. This is my other garden. So here I have that set up where I put in a post that I can run a hose to, put my hose around there. I just don't like that look. So I'm going to be replacing this area with one of the HoseLink. I have 43 peppers in this area. I just got them in. Since they're transplants, they just got in, the root systems aren't really well developed, you definitely want to be watering this, especially in 95-degree heat, almost every day, if not every other day. But if the temperatures are more normalized, 70, 80 degrees Fahrenheit, 3 times a week, 4 to 6 inches is enough to get these established. Why wouldn't we be watering a deep watering? Well, they don't have deep roots yet. It gets confusing. General rule of thumb, a nice deep watering 3 times a week really covers the deep watering and the shallow watering that we're going to be talking about. So maybe, and it's all based on time. I mean, if you are working and you're raising a family and you're doing all kinds of stuff, you may not have the time to water this garden, or the garden my size, 3 times a week with the deep watering. So stick with the deep watering at least once a week, but you're going to have to then work on the shallow watering. I know that it gets confusing. As we pull the mulch back, you're going to see moistures in there, and it's actually cool to the touch, even with the sun and it being 95 degrees out. If you let the soil bake and dry out, it greatly reduces the productivity of most of your plants. The reason being is, if it gets too hot, plants go into a survival mode. That's why you see peppers drop their flowers, tomatoes drop their flowers, sometimes drop their fruit. It's because that top 4 to 6 inches is just overheating. So one thing you can certainly do is put mulch down. That will reduce how warm that top 4 inches of soil gets. It also reduces the amount of time you have to water. Over the years, I've been doing this for 20 years, what I found is that I've increased the production of my garden by at least doing that deep watering one time, 2 minutes, or I'm sorry, 10 seconds around here to get that 2 inches of water. You get the deep watering. And then at least 2, if not 3 other times, I'm soaking in just the top 4 inches. And that just might be on a shower. You spray on a nozzle, you just kind of put it on there, wait 3-4 seconds, and you move along. That water will sink into that top 4 to 6 inches. All your plants, generally speaking, put out tons of surface roots. They're looking for fertilizer, they're looking for water. In order to access the fertilizer, they need water to kind of move it into the root system. That shallow watering helps take care of that. That produces, I think, better plants or stronger plants, more production, they thrive better. So it's a combination of both. Let me just show you what kind of the shallow watering looks like over at my main garden. So this is the point in the video where you're probably saying, this guy's just throwing numbers at me. Watering is not a recipe. You have to pay attention to the size of your plants, when you put them in the ground, the temperatures, how often you get real rain that soaks in to the soil. You don't want this to be happening to the top, 4 inches of your soil. This is going to reduce the hardiness of your plant, and it's just going to reduce production. You want your plants to thrive. So as I was saying, these guys just got in not too long ago. They don't really have established roots. If I do 10 seconds, that's going to give it a nice deep watering. Now, of course, when you're doing a deep watering, you're also saturating that top 4 to 6 inches of the soil. So when in doubt, water more often than you think. And realistically speaking, you want, I think, to water 3 or 4 times a week. A combination of deep watering, combination of soaking that top 4 to 6 inches. And it's all going to just really depend on many conditions: plant size, temperature, how often you get rain. I'm in Maryland on the East Coast. We get tons of rain. So I don't have to water as much as maybe somebody on the West Coast. I don't use drip irrigation. In July it gets really hot, so I may use a tower sprinkler, but I'm able to water my garden by hand. I also do that too so that I can inspect it. So these guys are watered. I'd be doing this 3 times a week while they're establishing, and when they get taller, I would go to a deep watering at least, once or twice a week, and then making sure I get the top 4 inches. Let me show you that. The tomatoes here are older. They've been in here at least 4 weeks. I even have tomatoes coming on. I have mulch down. If I pull the mulch back, you're going to see the soil is nice and moist down there. You definitely want to use mulch. And I would start just making sure I'm soaking the complete, again, 4 to 6 inches of the soil in this whole space. All 3 of these tomatoes, and I have a smaller one in the back there, they're going to be sending out those surface roots. So you want to get enough water that you're really soaking the whole area. Now, if I didn't do a deep watering maybe 2 or 3 days ago, I would give it 10 seconds right at the roots, let that water go down nice and deeply. But I'm not going to just stop with this. I want to make sure, again, I cover this whole area. The whole area is hydrating or giving water to your tomato plants here. And as the plants get larger, you're going to have to do more surface watering more frequently per week based on how much rain you get and the temperatures. This kind of system, watering more often than you need to, will really create plants that thrive and do a lot better. And if you don't believe me, test it out. Do, part of your garden with more frequent waterings at that 4 to 6 inch level, getting to depth at least once a week, if not twice a week, and you're gonna see a big difference. Okay, let's go to another part of the garden. This is a zucchini plant, that's a yellow squash. You can see I don't have mulch down yet. I'll be getting mulch, and it's starting to dry out along the top. Very quickly, when your temperatures get into the 90s, 2 consecutive days of the sun beating down here, it's going to start drying to depth. So if it's been a while, that 10 seconds to get 2 inches of water around the base. But I don't stop there. I'm going to water down and know that water's dropping into that top 4 inches or so. That's going to help create plants that thrive. And then I would come over to this plant, another 10 seconds, get 2 inches of water around there. And some of you are still going to say, well, how often do I water? And so when you water the bottom, look at the squash bugs came running up. So I'm going to get in there and actually squash the squash bugs. That's another reason why I actually water around my garden by hand, because I can find things like that. Let's just double check this one. There's a squash bug up there. When you water the base of squash and zucchini, the squash bugs will run up the plant, and then you can just kill them by hand. So some of you are still going to be saying, well, how often do I water? Take into account plant size, temperatures, rain, and if you want a recipe, at least once or twice a week deep watering, and then another 2 times of the shallow 4 to 6 inch watering. So 3 or 4 times a week is what I really recommend. You can't really go wrong with that. You can decrease the frequency with a lot of rain. You have to increase the frequency if you're not having rain, the plants are larger, and it's really, really hot out. So I'm going to show you how to set up the hose links on wooden posts. I'm going to cement them in. You can attach them to your house. And what's really cool about them, I see another squash bug. What's really cool about them is you can actually pick up the whole hose, container and all, and then carry it to another post and drop it on there. So you can move one around your whole property if you don't want to buy several of them. Let me show you how I put them in the ground. I'm putting one of my hose links right here. Want to replace all this hose that would just sit here in the shade, get covered in dirt. It just wasn't attractive. It's pretty straightforward. This is a 4x6 post. You can get them cut into 3-foot or 4-foot sections at Home Depot, and I'm going to be using 2 of these, I think. Dig a hole about 18 inches deep, and when you dig a hole, you can go straight down just like this, and then we're going to pour concrete in. When you get to the bottom, flare it out a little bit. That lets the concrete go into there, and it's less likely your post is going to move. The bracket goes right on there. It just screws right in. And then we're going to drop in some fast setting concrete. This sets up in 30 minutes. You want to set the post up first, kind of eyeball it, make sure it's straight, and then we go ahead and we dump in the concrete. Let me show you how to do that. I just eyeball things. This is pretty straight. We're going to adjust it once we pour the concrete in, pour the water in. That's all you do. That's a 50-pound bag. The hole's deep enough that the concrete almost comes up to the top. We'll put some dirt on there later. And you don't need to mix this. You can actually just put in about 2 gallons of water, and that will set up. Give this a little bit of a wiggle. The water will fill up in the air pockets. And that's when you kind of just sit back and you just make sure that looks straight. You have time, you have a good 15 minutes to adjust this. This isn't quite set up yet, but let's just pretend the hose link is sitting in there. I want to show you, they come with these quick connectors. You can just spin them, take them off. You can put on another piece right here, just like that. And then to disconnect it from the spigot, you just turn it, pull it out. So let's take this to the other side, because now we can pick this up and drop it in the other place. The hose link is on the other side of my yard. I'm no longer going to need that hose and that mess over there. You can put these brackets anywhere, and you can just lift up your whole hose link and drop it in there. The hose will go through there, hook up to the main hose. I'm ready to go. Thanks so much for watching. Please check out my seed shop at therustedgarden.com. You can check out the video description for more information on HoseLink and use my code. You'll get a discount. Thanks for watching.